Howdy, howdy, howdy. My name is Anachi Sasuke. Welcome back to Reading 001. In this episode, and probably for a few episodes afterwards, we're going to be making our way through the Ouroboros, or Ouroboros, however you want to say it, the Cycle Proposal, which was by someone. DJ Cactus and Twisted Gear, it looks like? Yeah. So there's 4 parts. There's the Children, the Broken God, Atonement, and the way it ends. I don't know how much of each will be per episode. It depends on how long they are. So, let's start with the Children. By order of the Overseer Council, the following file is level 5001 classified. Any attempts to access this file without level 5001 authorization will be logged and the personnel responsible terminated. Well, you haven't gotten me yet. Input credentials. Sins of the Father, Sins of the Son, authorization granted, primary mimetic kill agents disengaged. Good evening, 0513. Warning, parts of this file have been locked. Additional clearances required to unlock. Object designation, item 001. Containment class, Thaumiel. Active stable. Containment procedures. Item 001 is currently contained in San Marco, Mexico, beneath the previous site of the San Marco de la Vida Eterna Church. Original containment procedures have proven sufficient to contain item 001. There's a picture of it from July 27th, 1903. I hear fire sirens. The area of containment is currently designated a high-security military waste disposal site, and Mexican law disallows individuals from coming within 10 kilometers of the site. Automated closed-circuit surveillance drones are to maintain perimeter around Item 001's containment site and have been designed to kill on site. 05 Memorandum 001 Alpha. The containment of information regarding SCP-001, formerly Item 001, is to be considered a highest priority. I have allowed clearance in the database for the creation of a number of false objects in the slot. If anybody gets that far, that should be enough to satiate them. I pulled out some of the original EXs to hold the spot until we can find something better. Expunge everything you find. Get rid of any leaks. Drown it all in as many kill agents as you feel is necessary. You have more than enough clearance to do so. 052. Item 001 is the group designation for 9 human beings, aged 4 to 11, who gained anomalous properties as a result of Project 001, Twins of God. See Proposal 001 for more information. Due to improper use of Item 1, resulting in the death of a high-ranking staff member, termination was necessitated. As a result, Item 001 was put into its current containment. All 9 instances are functionally brain-dead, but continue to display signs of life despite the nature of their containment. Item 001 instances emit massive amounts of gamma radiation, often in excess of whatever that number is and whatever that unit of measurement is, in distinct patterns. When separated, these patterns appear random, however, certain characteristics become evident when the instances are brought together, and as such, each instance is contained roughly blank something away from any other instance. Additionally, they are noticeably radioluminescent. Video observation of Item 001 instances is impossible when they are active, as video recordings experience decay of footage when instances are on screen. The instances are capable, when within a range of no greater than 20 meters from any other instance, of long-distance termination of objects, places, or individuals. Additional information regarding this property is detailed later in this file. By order of the Overseer Council, Item 001 has been classified as a Thaumiel, or possibly Thaumiel, entity, which is Humphrey W. Lemke R. Christian K. Blah blah blah. Containment class proposal Thaumiel blah, 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 in 1920. Warning. Additional information regarding Item 001 is locked and currently subject to Level 5 classification. Mimetic kill agents are in place to prevent dissemination of information regarding 001. Non-Overseer individuals without Class 5 mimetic resistance conditioning are susceptible to termination as a result of the kill agents. You have been warned, and this will be your last warning. You can't hurt me with silly pictures. I'm a millennial. I've been through hell. That's a joke, by the way. Let's see. 1485992. 13 men on a dead man ship. 4910581. Oh, see, look, it's neutralized. I guess I had the power after all. Project proposal, Twins of God. Research Team Omega 5. Project date, February the 13th, 1922. Proposal statement. to create an anomalous entity bound by the necessary forces to the command of the Foundation Central Command Administrator, capable of destroying long-range hostile anomalous threats to Foundation and global security. Research Team Lead Dr. Someone with a PhD, 051. Assistant Leads, 052 and 3. Requested resources: access and use of item blank, subatomic pumping system, Harkin's Gateway, multiple injections. Materials necessary to construct a necessary containment and testing facility, no fewer than 50 adult humans D-class for testing purposes. Project details. Using information gained from recent testing of items something and something else, an opportunity has arisen previously unavailable to the Foundation. The ability to, over large distances, alter the quantum makeup of objects in such a way to render the target functionally non-existent. There's a footnote. The person who discovered that. To this end, it is now considered possible, with the use of item something, to transfer these properties to a human subject, which should allow for greater control of the effect. To meet the desired goal of the project, item blank, blank, and blank have been removed from the Foundation records, and their containment will take place solely at the primary testing facility. Under the guise of a military waste disposal site for the United States government, a site will be constructed in northern Mexico away from the civilian populations in order to safely test these theories. Given the potentially volatile nature of the project, utmost care will be implemented to provide a number of fail-safes in the event of a catastrophic breach of containment. These fail-safes are listed below. Given the success of the project, the control over the entity tentatively designated Item 001 is to be handed off to the administrator of the Foundation for use against a hostile anomalous organization classified as GOI-3, Kingdom of Addendum. A number of mind kill agents will be placed within the item, and access to these agents will be given to the administrator alone to act as a failsafe in order to keep the item out of the hands of opposition forces. Mimetic kill agent neutralized. Failsafe containment procedures. Alpha. Not that one. In the event of a catastrophic breach of containment, mind kill agents placed within Item 001 are to be activated, terminating the entity. Each of these agents has been given a different priority level and should be used in order. They are as follows: Berkeley agent, reduction of motor functions; Anastasia agent, reduction of anomalous capabilities, development ongoing; Nesbit agent, reduction of mental faculties; and Orion agent, full chemical dissolution of upper nervous system. Beta. In the event of a failure of Procedure Alpha, security personnel are to engage and terminate Item 001. Capture is unlikely and unadvised. Personnel are advised to maintain in a safe working distance from Item 001 and wear the necessary Foundation-approved anti-rad protection gear. Long-range ballistic fire is also advised as to not immediately attract the attention of the item. Delta. Isn't there something supposed to be in between Beta and Delta? I don't know if there's a C letter thing. In the event of a failure of Procedure Beta, Foundation-controlled long-range ballistic weapons are to be activated and used directly on Item 001. A perimeter will be established roughly 10 kilometers from the research facility, and no fewer than 10 heavy shell bombardment cannons are to be placed along the perimeter and utilized during the Delta procedure. Epsilon. In the event of a failure of Project Delta, an on-site explosive device is to be activated. The Foundation Administrator will oversee follow-up of Procedure Epsilon. Project Approval. Administrator Frederick Williams. Look, it says Fritz. Is Fritz really a shortening of Frederick? Anyway, Foundation Administrator Frederick Williams, 051, Project Lead. Is it normal to just see what their names are? I felt like we're not supposed to just see what their names are. Okay, next up is Report Walk-In. Probably close this one. Pew, pew, pew. Alright, next up, Neutralized, yada yada yada. Project Twins of God Progress Report. Research Team Omega 5. April the 19th of 1924. Progress details. Initial containment of the new Item 001 entity became immediately problematic as the expunged from record and acute radiation sickness across roughly 35% of active staff personnel, resulting in less than 10 casualties. Adjustment of containment procedures became necessary, and the internal structure of the containment site, now designated Site 1, was reinforced. Personnel chambers were moved back to an off-site location roughly 5 kilometers from the central testing facility. An attack on a Foundation research facility in the Sudan by Kingdom of Abaddon forces increased the drastic need for a long-range defense system and expedited the timeline for an active Item 1. By order of these Foundation Administrator, additional research sources were granted to aid in the development of more effective testing protocols. Another primary concern became the containment of the anomaly within a single human subject. In 100% of all test subjects, while the anomalous nature would transfer with little incident, subjects would become immediately paralyzed and suffer from severe cerebral hemorrhaging, which is when your brain goes pop inside your head. You don't want that. The only evidence of the anomaly taking effect was the sudden and random destruction of on-site structures and personnel, theorized to be the result of a loss of control due to deteriorated mental capacities in the subjects. Again, because the brain went pop. In 100% of all cases, mind kill agents were utilized to terminate the pre-Item 001 entity. Additional research conducted by off-site personnel gave light to the possibility of spreading the anomaly over a number of subjects, thus managing the increased mental load of the anomalous properties. And the footnotes are just the people who pitched that idea. After a testing run that left Site-001 at a reduced capacity to operate, and with the allowance of disposable dude personnel transferred off-site to other projects by order of the Foundation Administrator, alternate options for the continuation of the project had to be discussed. After consulting with the Site-17 director, a group of armed agents infiltrated the San Marcos de la Vida Eterna Church in San Marco and collected a number of young human beings for use in testing. Class A amnestics were applied to the entirety of the remaining population, who were then transferred to Site 9 for processing. The town of San Marco then became the new testing Site 1, and 23 of the healthiest subjects were chosen for research, while the rest were subject to termination. You couldn't have just mind-wiped them and sent them to their families? Rude. Or I guess, whoever was left from actually having had it done to them. Current status, whichever. The project is prepared to move on to the next phase of testing on the new 001 testing subject, and is awaiting orders from Central Command. The following letter has been sent ahead of this project update and reads as follows. April the 3rd, 1924, to Foundation Administrator from Omega 5 Team Lead. Administrator Williams, due to cuts and withdrawals ordered from your office, it has become increasingly difficult to maintain the level of progress expected from this project as per your orders. With no communication from Central Command, we assume that our directive has not been altered. A proposal to aid in our project reaching its conclusion will follow shortly. We ask that you please note the changes and reply in kind. Your timely response is appreciated, Project Lead. To Omega 5 Team Lead from Foundation Central Command. Your orders have not changed. We are in no less danger now than we were at the inception of your project. Unfortunately, I almost said however, my bad. We must also face the harsh reality that we are at war, and our resources are stretched thin. We are having a difficult enough time as is maintaining the secrecy that our cause requires, let alone continuing to do research. I will afford to you the benefits that I can, if for no other reason than your project may be all that can protect us from Abaddon now. I have seen your proposal, and while I am obliged ethically to deny the request, I am additionally obliged as the leader of this foundation to approve it. You may take your pick of the citizens, but only adults, and do not tread heavily through the lives of these innocents. God knows enough blood has been shed on our behalf. I do not wish to spill more. Administrator Williams, Foundation Central Command. And we already saw how that went. Shrink that down. Wait, let's say 9 minutes to midnight. Okay. Authorization code, Shadows on the Dunes. This files on the Kingdom of Abaddon. Designation, Kingdom of Abaddon. Threat level, very high. Activity level, also very high. Priority, level 5, which is probably also very high. Summation. Group of Interest 003, Kingdom of Abaddon, is a collection of hostile, anomalous humanoids currently located somewhere in the Sahara Desert, at a location referred to in their manuscripts as the Citadel of our God King Abaddon. These humanoids appear similar to human beings in a number of ways, but all instances appear to be at least Class 1 reality-bending entities. Is that actually going to say something, or nope, just another dude, with higher-ranking individuals reaching Class 3 and 4 classifications. Due to their anomalous qualities, capture and containment of these instances is impossible, and attempting to do so is often exceedingly dangerous. I'm going to take a second to take a sip of this here blue drink. It's not milk. Tasty. Initial discovery. 003 was initially observed by French military personnel in 1912 during an investigation of attacks against a small village in northern Libya. The military convoy was ambushed, resulting in the deaths of 80% of the contingent. Survivors reported an attack by no more than 6 sorcerers who were capable of flight and resistant to arms fire. The survivors and the superiors who witnessed their account were anesthetized and released. Foundation personnel first encountered GOI-3 during an attempted raid on a broken god warehouse in southern Egypt when MTF Alpha 4 No Borders was attacked by a group of anomalous individuals matching the general description given by the French military members. MTF Alpha 4, is that just a speck on my screen? Nope, that's there. Was successful in repelling these forces and managed to capture a low-ranking individual. After processing and interrogation, the true nature of the Kingdom of Addendum was realized, and Foundation Central Command began taking steps to protect the Foundation from the anomalous group. According to gathered data, the Kingdom of Addendum was originally a group of reality-bending entities from Arabia, who sought to carve out a nation of their own within the inhospitable Sahara. Because of their nature, they were able to adapt the harsh landscape to their needs, and use the terrain to keep intruders away. Over time, their numbers grew, and new births were brought before the ruler of the kingdom, God King Abaddon, to be changed into additional reality-bending entities. However, due to inbreeding and other genetic malfunctions that plague their society, GOI-3 is particularly fragile and will not likely last on its own as an independent organization for any longer than 20 years. Collected data implies that Abaddon is aware of this and is taking steps to assure its future. To this end, a number of Foundation facilities in and around the African continent have come under attack by Kingdom of Abaddon aggressors, who have cost the Foundation no fewer than 75 lives thus far, and who have stolen at least 12 different items. Conclusion. Because of the danger and difficulty involved when confronting Kingdom of Abaddon aggressors, and because of the lack of information regarding their activities, it is advised that no personnel attempt to engage any group without backup from a heavily armed military contingent. Research into developing methods to combat Abaddon forces is ongoing. Let's shrink that down. Memorandum. The Eyes of an Unforgiving God. Date, November the 29th, 1924, Omega 5-1. Subject 001. We did it then. We managed the impossible. We spat in the face of God and took his throne for our own. It is a glorious new day. 5 was right about spreading the anomaly around a group. Even with all the reinforcements we had made to the previous test subjects, the amount of energy that Blank managed to pump into their bodies was too much. Can't tell you how many D-Class we had to clean up off the floor after watching their skin melt off their bodies, and their bones carbonize and blow away like dust. Dozens? Hundreds? I don't know. More than we were expecting, and more than the Foundation was willing to allow, even for a project like this. 13 has expressed regret over what we did in San Marco, but 13 is short-sighted, and the Administrator is short-sighted. The deaths of a few, even the deaths of many, in order to protect the world from annihilation, it is nothing, and less. Those children are gods now, their lives committed to a higher purpose. What life is better than that of the Omnipotent? Testing begins tomorrow. Can you hear it? As Omega 5-1 immediately does the thing the Administrator said not to do. Dumbass. Do you hear the screaming? Memetic kill agent neutralized. Project Twin of Gods progress report of Research Team Omega 5, January the 17th, 1926. Progress report. The 9 entities collectively known as Item 001 are currently contained within the fortified bunker at testing site 001, while undergoing testing. Okay, that was on my screen. The entities, while functional in their purpose, display no higher brain activity. Despite this, the group collectively is capable of processing information and following orders given by individuals allowed within the memetic control cycle that all instances routinely undergo. All instances are currently a Class 5 radioactive hazard, and personnel are restricted from coming within 1 kilometer of the instances without the proper anti-rad protection equipment. The gamma radiation emitted by Item 001 appears to come randomly between individuals, but when brought together resembles patterns made by conscious human beings on EEG machines. Despite the resemblance, These patterns are more sporadic and inconsistent than what is usually observed in such situations. Item 001 are able to collectively channel enormous amounts of energy from a currently unbeknown extra-dimensional source, and use this energy to unbind atoms at a quantum level. This allows for the nearly imperceptible annihilation of any object at any distance, so long as the object and location is described in some detail to Item 001. Below are the Item 001 test results for January the 17th of 1926. Testing goal. Establish an outer limit for 001's area of effect. Round 1. Target object steel rod placed 5 kilometers away. Instructed by operator Dr. Blank Blank, Omega 5 team leader, to destroy it. Result. Vaporized shortly after receive orders to do so. No quantifiable amount of target remain post-test. Round 5. Placed 800 kilometers. They were instructed to destroy it. It was confirmed vaporized. The children are operating as designed. I have little doubt that they will serve their purpose when the time comes. They are unwavering, unfeeling, seemingly indestructible, and need only a word before sending death flying across the universe. Truly, this is a weapon built for only the boldest of men. Test Series 25. Establish a maximum and minimum size of effect over distance. Round 2. Steel sphere 3 meters in diameter placed 1,000 kilometers from 001, told to destroy it. It was vaporized as expected. Round 3. Target object, the Church of the Broken God worship site in blank, Turkey, 11,500 kilometers away, instructed by the operator to destroy it. Result. Target vaporizes. No additional damage noted to surrounding area. Witnesses to event were administered class amnestic and held for additional testing. Test demonstrates that individuals or groups of individuals must be targeted, as targeting a location is not enough to result in their annihilation. Round 7. Target object, male human, age 33, located roughly 11,500 kilometers from Item 1. Instructed by the operator to destroy it. Target vaporizes. Okay, coming up on the last one. Vigilia Oculos. 2. Omega 5 team lead from Administrator Williams. I have heard the good news of your success with Project 001 and cannot express to how important this is. We will finally be able to put an end to Addendum and be able to better protect ourselves in the future. To this end, I am eternally grateful. However, I must admit my concerns about you specifically, 051. Your recent letters have been troubling in spite of your successes. I have no doubt that you were the most qualified man to lead the Omega team, but I understand that the stress of the endeavor has taken a toll on you. I know it has with me. Regardless, once this is all over, I'm prepared to promote you to director of the newly constructed Site 19, after you've taken some time to recuperate, of course. We can discuss the details when I see you next month, once we've taken care of Addendum. Sincerely, Administrator Williams. To which he responds, I'm fine, Administrator. The project is finished. We will complete our task when you arrive. 1. General notice. All personnel redacted by Overseer order issued by Foundation Central Command. Subject Administrator Williams. Foundation Administrator R.D. Williams has been murdered. A general warrant has been released for the capture of his killer and his killer's accomplice, Dr. Blank Blank, Dr. Blank Blank, Dr. Blank Blank, Dr. Blank Blank, and Agent Blank Blank. These individuals are believed to be armed and highly dangerous and may possess a number of dangerous anomalous items. If you have information regarding the location of these individuals, please report directly to your site director. A transitory council of administrators has been created, consisting of senior staff members from the Omega 5 research team by order of the late administrator. This council will oversee O5 operations until such a time as a new governor can be established. General notice issued by the Foundation Central Command. Dissolution of GOI-3 investigatory teams. Notice. The following MTF investigatory teams are currently considered inactive and are to report to Site 17 for debriefing. Alpha 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5, and 7, not 6. All the King's Men, Red Right Hand, Harvard Boys, No Borders, Band of Brothers, and Dark Testimony. November the 1st, 1926, to Overwatch Command. Director Harrison, Site 23. Subject Site 23 Scouting Report. My boys just came back with the reports. I'll send the pictures they took along with this letter, but I still can't believe it. It's all gone. Just desert that goes on for an eternity, like they were never even there. I had him check, and you were right, no bodies. There shouldn't be any, should there? Regardless, I don't know what devil you had to make a deal with, but thank you. And we got some dots. You have not accessed this terminal in 3 minutes. Do you require assistance? New audio file. Oh, there's not even actually... Okay. Better to do this now, I think. Better to get it done while I can still remember it all. It's been a long time since I read this file. Longer still since that night in 26. It's been too long since people knew the truth of what we did, and what happened to Abaddon and One and the Administrator. Hell, if the Anestics have held up, I might be the only one left. I have no intention of taking this to the grave with me. Not this. One was always charismatic, that much is on record. That's why Williams gave him the lead of Omega 5 over 2, even though 2 had been with the Foundation longer. That's not to say that One wasn't smart, on the contrary. He was one of the more brilliant researchers I had ever worked with, even after all this time. He penned most of the reports for the work that Omega 5 did, even before we were a fully fledged team. Back when we were just a handful of junior researchers out of Site 17, he was eloquent and passionate and driven. He was also always so detached. He loved his work, don't get me wrong, and the research was his greatest desire, but the direction of the Foundation, the stress on containment, he had no love for. He said to me many times that we were underutilizing our assets, that we could provide better containment of anomalies if we weren't so damn afraid of them. Afraid to use some to contain others. He was the original designer of the Thaumiel classification, of course. Him and the Epsilon 2 research team. I think that's why he was so eager to jump at the chance to do what we were doing with One. It was unprecedented, the 001 project, but then so was Abaddon. The logs here don't give the half of it, and the rest has been lost to history. With Abaddon, we were wildly, hilariously outmatched. A group of decently funded scientists and armed guards against a small army of type greens, and we didn't even see the worst of them. Class 2s and 3s were more than a match for the best we had to offer, and this was nearly half a century before we see the first Scantron anchor. Or Scranton anchor. Some reports claim that the ruler was a Class 5. If true, then he could have blinked us off the map if he wanted. Abaddon was responsible for the complete destruction of 3 sites in 1922 alone. It wasn't just in sub-Saharan Africa either, although we certainly didn't publicize that. There was Kingdom activity as far north as Gibraltar and as far south as Madagascar. They would enter sites, destroy everything, and leave with just a few objects. Shred the records, too. And what were we to do? We had only just begun classifying reality benders, let alone combating them. Were they to make it to one of the larger sites in Europe or the Middle East, it would have been a bloodbath. If you're reading this, then you've read the logs about 001. You know what it does, how we built it. The gun to end all guns. A weapon crafted out of human bodies and fire that could annihilate anything, anywhere, anytime, all with just a brief description. One was fascinated by it. By them. The children. You can still hear them screaming while we put them into the machine and pulled their souls out and replaced it with something else. But it worked, and One was so proud. Then the time came to finish our task. The Administrator flew in from 17, one of a handful of times I'd ever seen him in public. As exciting an event as it was, the air was thick with solemnity. We all knew the gravity of our task, understood that we were sentencing hundreds to death. I think that if we thought there was any other option, we might have shied away from the edge, but while we watched, One approached the glowing children and spoke the activation words. They were glorious, in a way. The perfect balance of raw energy in human form. He leaned into them and spoke the name of Abaddon's Citadel, and then they burst with light, and it was over. We had no way of knowing whether or not it worked, other than what we had seen in other tests, and yet it felt finished. There was a feeling like a collective breath had been released. Then Williams disappeared, his clothes and protective gear falling to the ground in a heap, and as gunfire filled the testing chamber with smoke, we saw One sprinting towards an emergency exit and One glowing again. After this, it was all a rush. A quiet ride back to our bunker as MTF teams rushed in to contain 001. A quick debriefing with other command officials. Questioning, searches. It all blends together. One was gone, of course. They didn't find him, and they never did. He wasn't the only one who left. 4 other members of our team alone went with him. A number of other junior staff members, and then about half of the senior staff at Site 15 defected. All disappeared without a trace. Items, too. Right out of their cells. They discovered later that it was a long time in the making, and one had fostered the 001 project just to meet this end. We buried the children deep beneath San Marco, covered them in about 50 meters of concrete. They didn't say a word when we put them into lead bags, not that it would help. They didn't say anything when we separated them, and they didn't say anything when we closed the tomb on top of them. I doubt they'll ever say anything ever again. I have no doubt that they're still alive, though. The most powerful weapon in the world, armed and loaded without its trigger. One has the trigger, and one alone. With any luck, it died with him. In the end, we were left in charge, the 8 of us who remained. We picked 5 more of the brightest we could find, and we pushed on. Abaddon was gone, without a trace. There was still so much to do, but we found a way to push forward. We made do, and in the end we overcame. I still think about the children under San Marco from time to time. About the lengths we went to when we were panicked and afraid. About the things we did even outside of the project. Think about one, too. I wonder if he found what he was looking for. I wonder if he thinks it was worth it. I received a message through the secure system nearly 1 year ago today. I said nothing then, but I'm going to add it to this file now. As for the contents, I'll let others decide. I've said enough. End recording. Command users 0513 upload messages secure. File upload complete, now displaying. 13. When we were young, you asked me if I thought that our dreams would ever be realized, if we would ever be able to keep the world truly safe and hang it up for good. You asked me if I thought we had the means to do so, or if the means existed at all. You asked me to what lengths we must go, what prices we must pay, what allegiances we must forge, in order to achieve perfection. I did not know then. I do know now. There will come a time when the secrets that the Foundation has tried to hide away will rise up from the shifting sands in glorious appearance, when the subjugated will break free from the bonds of their captors, and when the march of progress will no longer be impeded by those who would huddle around their fires, swatting at the ever-growing shadows. On that day, the Foundation will be cast aside, and all that will remain is purpose. Do you hear the Black Moon howling, 13? You will soon. Viva la insurrection. For unlock, please input level 5 authorization code. No less than 13. Thank you. This data file is now unlocked. You are now logged out. And then there's a bunch of that. So that was part 1, the children. And then part 2 comes the broken god. I'll check how long it is. By order of the Overseer Council, but Moxture class? Okay, that made it much longer. Yeah, I'll do this one too. Okay. Apotheosis. Life signs detected, mimetic inoculation ascertained. Welcome, Overseer. Items SCP-001, object class Moxture. The monster classification was codified in 1981 by the Foundation's Containment Committee in conjunction with the Overseer Council, the Site Directors Council, and the Foundation Ethics Committee. Until such a time that the monster class was codified, 001 was classified as neutralized, and the monster class was created to replace this improper classification. See Classification Committee Record CA10931, relevancy of the neutralized classification and non-standard applications, and CA10945, proposal monster class. Okay. Information on the relevancy of SCP-001 to the related anomalous objects are to be omitted from the prospective objects documentation. While the connections with the Church of the Broken God can remain available, the origins of the items are to be omitted or obfuscated. Robert Bomaro, current leader of the Church of the Broken God, date unknown. The inactive component of SCP-001 is to remain in its current location, and any shipping or diving is forbidden in that area. Civilian discovery of 001 is to be suppressed, and amnestics are to be utilized in order to maintain classification. Persons affiliated with the Church of the Broken God who make active attempts to seek out the inactive component of 001 are to be taken into Foundation custody and questioned. Information pertaining to 001, whether physical or digital, is to be confiscated and contained. The inactive component of 001 is expected to remain inanimate. However, should 001 experience spontaneous reanimation, all active mobile task force units at nearby Site 27, 44, 90, and 101 are to be assigned to active countermeasures. Should this event, currently designated a 001 apotheosis event, occur in the modern world, it is believed that current means of information suppression would be insufficient. It is likely that a 001 apotheosis event would result in a SK class broken masquerade scenario, and likely following that an XK class end of the world scenario. And what is that? SK class scenarios automatically trigger a backup of all sensitive Foundation information and maximum security data servers within self-contained deep well sites, currently 117, 118, and 119. All non-essential personnel will receive mandatory amnestic treatment, and all major regional sites will go into a state of extended lockdown. Within current models, this state is indefinite. Extent of active components of 001 are not to come within 20 kilometers of the inactive component of SCP-001 under any circumstances. Description: SCP-001 is a collection of anomalous items, formerly a single massive mechanical entity assembled by members of the Church of the Broken God in late 1942 near La Paz, Mexico. Items include 217, 1139, 882, and several components of SCP-629. A full list is available here. This was discovered after the containment of 629 by a collaboration with Broken Church contacts. It is unknown how these components were initially collected by Dr. Wondertainment without knowledge of the Foundation or its liaisons within the Church of the Broken God, and 629 itself is unaware of its legitimate connection with the Church. Well, that's not actually a link, so I guess we can't see. But there is links to these guys. And I've read all 4 of them, I just don't remember what any of them are. Members of the Church combined the various anomalous objects in an effort to restore their deity. Upon activation, SCP-001 reportedly began to integrate metallic objects into itself while actively seeking other anomalous objects. 001 and the resulting apotheosis event that took place as a result of its assembly was the cause of the significant environmental changes in western Mexico and required one of the most widespread use of amnestics to date. Post-event, the active components of 001 were taken to Foundation sites for containment, while the inactive component remained at the bottom of the Gulf of California at approximately 23.807269, -108.418369. Addendum 1. Collected information describing 001. Transcription of statement by Father Jorge Castillo, August 1945. I'm not going to try to give him an accurate accent because it feels like it's going to come off racist. Fernand was the first, I think, the first who contacted me after they'd found the heart. The way they had described it, the fervor that was in their eyes, it captivated me, and I knew that they had done it. I went to meet with Anthony and Salvador the weekend after my sister's confirmation. When they showed it to me, I was taken aback. It was little more than a pile of gears, pistons, ticking pieces of clockwork, and lubricated metal parts, all dutifully churning along without a power source. Within it, I saw the heart just as they described. It spoke to me, not like you and I would speak to each other, but with images and feelings and pain. It was in so much pain. Like the spark that had given it life had made it realize what it was or what it wasn't, and it desired only to be whole again. Desire is a strong word, perhaps. Not desire. More than it was impulse. Something within the creature drove it forward towards some unthinking, unfaltering end. The creature they presented to me was not like the other artifacts I had found and blessed. This one was different. There was something wrong with it, and I did not know until later what they had done. I begged Salvador to take it back to that beach and undo it, that it is not right, but they would hear nothing of it. It started moving before I left, shaking enough from side to side that it could achieve locomotion. It hobbled over a wrench, and then the wrench became part of its body. They said to me, "Our God is unbroken!" I never saw them again. That beach. SCP-2217. Well, I'm nowhere near that, so I guess I'll find out what that is when I find out what that is. I'm like, 900 SCPs away from that? Excerpt from an interview with Francis Bollinger, 1946. It didn't use words, or any kind of language. It would make metallic sounds, but at the same time, images and concepts would come to mind when we were around it. You ever felt when you have a thought or idea, and it's all there, born whole into your mind? You still had to think the words for it, despite knowing the sentiment before you finished the sentence. It was like that, but from an alien mind. Truly the words of the divine. Except from an interview in 2007 with Trixie Silva, agent of the Unusual Incidents Unit. Woo! There were a few wolves. Wait, you know what those are, right? They're like hunters? They work for the Horizon Initiative. They confronted us near a church in Santa Margarita. Wanted us to turn in the stuff that we had collected for the Church of the Broken God, like the Abrahamic stuff we had handed over. We deliberated on whether we should give it to them. Our stance with the HI has been a bit shaky, more so in recent memory. While we have been on good terms with the local broken churchgoers, the wolves were are more aggressive. We looked over what we had, and while we did, this woman walked up. I don't know where she came from. She was just like a hippie, thin iron chains for hair, but she seemed distant the whole time. The look in her eyes, her abnormal smile, like she was hardly there. She looked at what we had and said she only wanted this, I don't know what it was. It was a metal box. It whirred and clicked and put out this little beam of light on one end when I picked it up. Felt lighter than I would have thought. I asked why that was important to her, and she said it'd be easier to show me than tell. She closed her eyes and bowed her head. She didn't move or speak after that, so I closed my eyes as well. She brought her forehead to mine, but kind of offset. We stood like that for a second. When we to Ashano, before she suddenly moved her chin down, made me jerk slightly. The world dropped beneath me and I fell. Something clicked in my mind, an image of 2 gears, formerly meshed together, now broken away. I felt the teeth in my spine arc out as I bent over. One step and I clicked out along the multidimensional cog that was the planet. It spun around the furnace of the sun, tethered to it by the chain that was gravity, and we hurtled together through an oily cosmos with all the power of an infinitely winding spring. Sorry, it was an experience? No, it was not a religious experience, but yeah. She told me to pick the box back up, and it felt a lot heavier than before. I couldn't tell if it actually had more weight or if it felt more significant. I gave it to her and wouldn't hear anything otherwise from the wolves or my teammates or my superior. Addendum 2. Interview with the excommunicated Church of the Broken God priest Father Dolores Randall, 1945. Image taken from the Church of the Broken God Information Repository, believed to be an early incarnation of SCP-001. I'm going to drink more of my blue drink first. Alright. You mentioned the heart earlier. Were you there when they found it? No, not at all. I was out of the country at the time, working with a new mission in Panama. I only heard about Ezekiel after the fact. Who was Ezekiel? One of Bomaro's agents? Before he was made leader of the church, Robert would keep a number of them around. These individuals who were in tune with God and could feel its presence, speak to it. Ezekiel had discovered an artifact of some value, and Bomaro took him on afterwards. These agents were the first to experiment with the augmentations as well. As you can imagine, many of them died. But not Ezekiel? No. He was very close to Bomaro, and I don't know if he would have risked Ezekiel's well-being. It doesn't matter. Ezekiel didn't need augmentations to speak to the god. He was just capable. So what does Ezekiel have to do with the heart? You heard Avery tell you that they had a stockpile of artifacts, right? Anything that one of these agents touched, if they felt something, they would have it shipped to La Paz with the rest of it. Most of it was worthless, but every now and then, they would find something legitimate. The purifier, the one, whatever you call it, one of the agents discovered that near Nepal. They had tendons and ligaments and everything else, but they were all just parts. They didn't move on their own, but they didn't do anything together. How do you mean? The texts refer to the god reassembling itself once the pieces are brought before its heart. All you need to do is feed the heart a limb and the god will have a limb. But they couldn't find a heart. there were a couple of agents who claimed to have found one, but they were all the same useless piece of machinery as the rest. Where does Ezekiel figure into this? Ezekiel was the one who told Bomaro that if they could not find a heart, maybe they could build one of their own. This, at the time, flew directly in the face of the church doctrine. The leadership, if they had known, would have excommunicated him, but it was quickly becoming clear that the project couldn't last through to the summer. I was sent in with my mission to resupply them after Ezekiel had left, and the supplies were nearly exhausted. Our records indicate that the heart was something they discovered. Is that not true? Of course it isn't true. You can't preach to a congregation about God giving parts of himself to you and then turn around and tell them that the most essential part is something you conjured up out of nothing. Worse than nothing, though. The details of what they did to create that heart and make it live were never revealed to me, but you can draw conclusions from evidence. There was a drought that year, and the polio crisis hit an all-time high. Thousands died, all of natural causes. A freak event, never accurately recorded because of the attention on the war. Dios mío, but who can say? You think the two are related? I think the timing is too coincidental. And knowing what I know about that thing, what that thing became, I think the answer is clear. That was not the heart of God, Agent. That was something altogether different. Recovered video transcript, November 1942. Video recovered from local documentary film crew. Shot begins on a destroyed home. The wreckage centered around the garage. Metal fragments and strips of rubber trail down the driveway and onto the asphalt, and go down the street. Pieces of various automobiles are strewn across the street and the sidewalk. The trail leads to SCP-001, which is integrating a truck into its chassis. 001 continues to the nearest house where it begins consuming the gutters. Residents of the area flee the scene, several injured by discarded shards of glass and twisted metal discharged by 001. Lights produced from various parts of its body focus on the various prone figures. A section along the undercarriage of 001 alters and drops away from the main body, which continues down the street in search of more sources of material. The ejected subsection continues alterations, forming a vertical pod somewhat resembling a human spine and ribcage. Pod collapses in various areas, the rib-like protrusions extending outward as the rest of the pod changes to a humanoid form roughly 3 meters tall. Light is produced from the head, which is focused on a nearby civilian. The metal humanoid picks up the civilian, who appears to be dead, and places it into a small chamber between the humanoid's ribs. The ribs vibrate as the humanoid approaches a second civilian, who is attempting to crawl away. She attempts to struggle as the humanoid lifts her and places her inside its chest cavity. The humanoid turns away from the camera to approach a third civilian, and what appears to be the woman's dismembered hand falls to the floor. A growth on the humanoid's back slowly expands as it continues to gather bodies, the body of the humanoid decreasing in size as it does so. By the sixth consumed body, the growth is larger than the humanoid, and it is unable to continue bipedal movement. The limbs recede into the body, and the ribs extend to allow it to scuttle onto the roof of a nearby house. It remains in place for 20 minutes. The bulbous exterior cracks and is torn away from within, revealing 3 humanoids. They each appear to be symptomatic of SCP-217 and exhibit physical characteristics of the 6 captured civilians. One, a female with chains extending from its scalp, shakes another, which appears to be dead. The third, a male with clockwork limbs, examines itself before jumping from the roof, landing on its stomach. It does not appear to be damaged by this, which seems to cause it distress. It then pursues SCP-001, which is consuming another vehicle further down the street. The female humanoid notices the camera crew. It begins to wave, but quickly stops. It looks towards SCP-001 before jumping into the backyard and out of the camera's view. Addendum 1.4, taped phone conversation with Robert Bomaro. The following is an audio from a taped phone conversation between an agent of the Church of the Broken God, name unknown, and Robert Bomaro. The call was recorded December of 1942 and was collected by Foundation personnel during a raid on a church stronghold in 1966. Now we get to see what the website has decided these people sound like, since I don't know.
Hello? Bless you, Father. Dimitri? No. Oh, of course. Bless you, child. How is the little lord?
Stronger every day. We had to move him from the back of our office into a warehouse nearby.
He's being fed?
As you required.
Good. When will you be moving to Peñasco?
Within the week. We are only waiting for the next train.
It may need to be sooner. There was a raid in La Paz 2 weeks ago. 3 of our men have not been accounted for. There is a growing Foundation activity nearby.
Father? Father?
Tomorrow.
Father?
Yes. We had expected them to head north, but they come west instead. A minor setback.
What about the safe house? There are nearly 100 other artifacts there, and...
Minor setback. They don't know where it is, and even if they did, that isn't their priority right now. Their eyes, and the eyes of the rest of the world, are in Europe. As their gaze settles there, they will not realize their accomplishment until they are powerless to stop him.
That was, something else I needed to ask you, Father.
Yes?
Our God is ravenous. We cannot seem to satiate him. The supplies we were given are not.
What is the issue?
Father, the Lord is eating its own housing. We cannot convince him to stop. He cannot be reasoned with. It's
nonsense. The heart of the devout may speak directly to our God. Can you not hear his words when he reaches out to you? Do you not feel the machine moving inside of you? Or do you need more proof other than the living, breathing God before your own eyes?
No, Father, it is not that. It is...
I will hear nothing of it. For years we have prayed and asked for our God to be unbroken before us, and now he has presented himself. We know that the divine will speak to the heart of the devout. If you're telling me that there are none among you who are devout enough to commune with our Lord, tell me now so you can be replaced.
Our faith is strong, Father. Please forgive my insolence. I am only misguided.
See to yourself, then. I worry for your faith. Have one of your brothers, one who is stronger than you. Have him speak to the Lord and tell him the necessity for secrecy. Our Lord will understand, no doubt. The unbroken God is a reasonable God.
Yes, bless you, Father.
Bless you, child.
It's not like it was one person talking, but anyway, Addendum 1.05, Escalation Report, December 1943. The following is an interview conducted with the Foundation Commander Mark Peterson of Site-74. The director, who prior to the Apotheosis event was stationed in Mexico City, was on site with Foundation personnel in La Paz during the incident. Start again from the top, we're recording now. Alright. The first reports we got about church activity in Mexico were in 41, but it was all pretty minor at the time. We had just finished field operations near the border up north and were preparing to move our assets to Atlanta for deployment to France. We had just gotten our orders to retrieve a series of sensitive objects that they didn't want to get into the hands of the Krauts, and they were going to move our entire division to get it done. Leadership wasn't sure that Roosevelt would make the call to move in enough time for us to blend in with the Americans, so we were going to have to go in separately. The whole thing was a mess. What kept you in La Paz? I was there on accident. One of our trains had taken the overland route to La Paz, probably to pick up some of the armaments we had there. Turns out that train was supposed to head north, so all of a sudden most of the leadership south of the Rio Grande is in La Paz, which in retrospect probably did us a lot of good as far as the overall effort is concerned. When did you first hear about the 001 Apotheosis entity? Jesus, is that what they're calling it now? The machine, I guess. We first heard through the grapevine of increased activity in the area. I guess it would have been a little over a year ago. We ended up in La Paz in October 42, so... Yeah, that sounds about right. The first concrete evidence we got that something was wrong was when a train of refugees? Seems kind of silly to call them that, but I guess that's accurate. They showed up in La Paz near the end of October, talking about how their entire town had been mulched. They didn't really elaborate much, just kept saying, La Maquina, you know, the machine. That's why we were calling it that, by the way. We had no idea what it was supposed to be. What about your first interaction with the entity? Well, the rail stopped running, if that's what you mean. We got word from the local authorities that there had been an accident up north and that the trains weren't heading to the border anymore. It wasn't an issue for us, since we could have taken a couple of vehicles and headed east until we hit one of the little towns at the foot of the mountains. Most of them were hooked up to a separate rail line entirely, and we could have gotten out that way, but the big stuff, the stuff that the train had been sent to La Paz for, couldn't be moved. So we were going to wait it out. Then DeMarco had the bright idea to send a party up the rail line to see where the holdup was, and see what we could do to clear it. He led the expedition himself. What happened to Agent DeMarco? You know damn well what happened to him, Bill. For the record, fine. We didn't hear back from them after 3 days, and we're going to send the rest of the leadership east anyway, so they didn't have to wait. But then after 5 days, one of DeMarco's guys showed up at our camp. He was delirious, talking about the World Eater, and the rest of the guys had gotten mulched, and they hadn't they? I know it wasn't as big as then as it ended up, but it wasn't something to fuck around with. DeMarco, are you alright? Yeah. He tried to kill it. He probably knew then what we wouldn't find out until later, that we couldn't contain this thing. There wasn't a hole in the world big enough to put it in, or a box that it wouldn't eat its way out of, but it didn't matter for him or anyone he went with. The machine didn't care. When did you first see it? December. Once we'd hunkered in, I was part of an expeditionary team that flew up there to get a good look at it. It was already, you saw what it did to that side of the country. I've never seen anything that big that could move. It was like a mountain of moving parts blackening the sky as it burned through whatever it was shoveling into its chest. And it was small then. It was, I don't know. We all had XK event preparation training, but this went above and beyond anything we had trained for. It was inevitability. We knew that we were going to die, and this thing was going to kill us. It was just a matter of when. Addendum 1.6, Collected Foundation Correspondences. Note, the following are excerpts from written correspondences by Foundation personnel stationed at La Paz, recovered from the temporary site in the wake of the Apotheosis event. Names have been omitted. Dear blank. I don't know. I don't even know if this will get to you. None of the trains are running, but our commander says that we can still get letters out. I hope it does. I'd like you to read it. The skies down here have been dark for weeks. Smoke from up north every day makes it hard to breathe. They still don't have indoor plumbing here, and nobody but the other guys in our company speak English. We still don't know what we're down here to do either. I keep hearing we're here to fix the rails, but why are we going north? Aren't the brakes on the rails up north? A man came to town today with damn near half his face cooked off. It's like a dead man. Didn't respond to anybody. He got toward the middle of town and collapsed. When he finally woke up in the infirmary lid, he was delirious, telling a story about a machine this out of a mountain that spoke to you. Said there were people jumping out of their homes and running just to throw themselves in it. Said they were shredded like jumping under a lawnmower. Then he died, and nobody knows why. The mountains crumbled before our own eyes. We saw a figure rising through the smoke, slow and lumbering, but with terrifying momentum. It didn't crawl like a beast or walk like a man, but was propelled forward by the turning of a million cogs like an iron centipede. Its body extended upwards into the smoke higher than we could make out. Within its chest we saw fire like the furnaces of hell. It came to the mountains north of us. It did not stop or go around, but it went through and devoured them. It reached out with a long, pulsing arm and pulled an entire village into its maw. I saw men leaping to their death as their homes were swept away into the same inferno as the rest, and it howled, not just through the grinding of the gears of the churning of the machine, but in our minds. I could hear it in my heart. It was screaming. Directive, Central Command, Site 001, courtesy of blank. Temp site lost, La Paz in ruins. Mechanical entity contained. Massive geological alterations. XK avoided, requesting amnestic support. Addendum 1.7, let's see. SCP-001, image recovered post-event and is heavily damaged. Photographer unknown. Interview with GOC Lieutenant Revenant. Note, the following is an excerpt of a post-event interview conducted with a GOC Lieutenant codenamed Revenant. The recording of the interview and all transcripts thereof were collected by Foundation agents during a negotiated information exchange in 1992. To date, the identity of Revenant is unknown. There's this story that gets told among Foundation agents. Something that the grizzled veterans will tell the greenhorns during the long nights of guard duty on some cell block or another. I don't know who started it, but I know they still tell it. It's been half a century. And they still get it right. You can give them that much credit. They say, don't you know? The GOC killed God. But the greenhorns will say, no, that's not true. God is in a cell at site whatever. GOC didn't kill God. And they're talking about that type green they got locked up somewhere, the one who thinks he's the Christian God. Then the vets will smile and shake their heads and won't say anything because they all know. They know that in 1943, in the midst of the apocalypse, the Foundation could do nothing but watch the end while the Allied Occult Initiative, a poorly funded, undermanned, inadequate predecessor to the Coalition, saved the world. The metaphorical gun was found on an island off the coast of Greece. Can't even remember what it would look like. All I got is that sort of fuzzy recollection the amnestics leave you with, but I distinctly recall it wasn't as heavy as you'd think. Why the amnestics? I was with the detachment deployed to the area, and apparently one of the pieces had some mind-altering effect to it. I have a vague sense of feeling something wrong, so I'll take their word for it. I don't remember what it looked like. I can't recall how it destroyed that much land. Hell, I barely remember when it happened. And the only reason I know where is all the before and after maps. But I can still feel it in my gut that wasn't how things were meant to be. We stood before what looked like it to be an angry and vengeful God, and all it did was beg us to kill it. We were all too happy to oblige. Okay, recorded video transcript. Note, the following is a transcript of recorded video footage roughly 30 seconds in duration. The transcript of the clip was authored shortly after its recovery, though the video has since degraded and is no longer legible. The footage's audio is in acceptable condition and is available for access below. Warning, the following audio snippet is at a high volume. Early image of SCP-001 during the evacuation of a nearby town. Neutralization of SCP-001. On July 17, 1943, agents from the Allied Occult Initiative contacted Foundation directors stationed at La Paz, Mexico, and requested assistance with transportation towards the site of the 001 Apotheosis entity. Foundation operatives moved quickly to dispatch a plane to retrieve the AOI members. After arriving, the agents described a unique anomalous artifact they had in their custody and how it might be used to slow the advance of the 001 Apotheosis entity. 3 days after arriving at La Paz, on July 24, 1943, the Allied Occult Initiative dispatched a single agent to the site of the entity, with the anomalous artifact on their person. On the morning of July 25, 1943, as the 001 Apotheosis entity approached the shore of the Pacific Ocean, another massive mechanical construct appeared overhead, later classified as 2399 and given an appropriate cover story for its Foundation file. The origin of the entity is unknown. Records of the event following the appearance of 2399 are incomplete and likely inaccurate. The result of this engagement was the annihilation of SCP-001. 2399 disappeared and was later discovered in low Jupiter orbit in a state of disrepair, though the reason for this is currently unknown. The remaining inactive component of 001, a massive unassembled group of machine parts, remains at the bottom of the Gulf of California. Upon removing 882 from its inactive superstructure, the remainder collapsed and became wholly inert. Following the 001 Apotheosis event, a massive anesthetization of individuals in and around the area now known as Baja California took place. These efforts were aided with the quantity of a thick black smoke that accompanied SCP-001, and current historical records describe the event as a forest fire. Significant effort was made to adjust maps of the area as well as relocate displaced civilians. Because of the need for a widespread amnestic regimen, several experimental neurotransformers were used. Specifically the U-class, the UN-class, and the UO-class amnestics, all of which have been discontinued. And because of their poorly understood side effects, it is estimated that no fewer than 2 million people across the world died in the decade following the 001 Apotheosis event. Addendum 1.10. Collected Allied Occult Initiative documentation. Note, the following document was given to the Foundation personnel by POI 004D/001, see Addendum 1.12. It is currently unknown how the document came into their possession. From the Office of the Authority General of the Allied Occult Initiative, Priority Tango 11, Attention General Darius Artifact Collection Report. Authored by Lieutenant Van Pelt, co-author CO Colonel Bagram. 57 pages. We do not have 57 pages. Summary of report. On December the 30th, 1942, a rogue humanoid entity, anomalous in nature, was sighted by a patrol near a small island off the coast of Greece. This entity, who claimed no name and did not communicate readily in the English tongue, was carrying a small cubic artifact no larger than a baseball. The entity appeared to be feminine and had a number of steel chains extending from its scalp. Entity was originally willing to give up possession of artifact classified AR-213, but became hostile shortly thereafter and began speaking. Entity made threats on the lives of the squad and subdued 2 officers before being incapacitated by Sergeant Dixon. Entity made reference to the west of the Mexican country, demanding to be freed so that the artifact could be taken there. Further research has uncovered increased SCP Foundation activity in that area, as well as some minor geological disturbances. On the orders of Colonel Bagram, 2nd Platoon was ordered to ship to the site of the disturbances with the entity, classified EN-340, in tow. After boarding the ship bound for America, EN-340 became passive, albeit obviously uncomfortable and disturbed. Recommending further psychological evaluation of EN-340 upon return prior to termination. Once analysis of AR-213 is completed, the artifact will be shipped to Zurich for incineration. Report is attached for your consideration. Addendum. Agent Ruberson's statement, 1944, January. Inactive pieces being transported for processing and containment. Agent Aaron Ruberson was on site during the collection of SCP-001 artifacts. As the most senior member of Foundation staff assigned to the collection effort, he was required to submit a post-event statement. This report was filed at Site-17 until it was added to the other classified materials related to 001. It's unknown whether any other individuals had knowledge of this report or if any copies were made. The following is an excerpt from that statement.
Well, we took what we could from the shores first. Little things. Gears and pulleys and pistons and things like that. A lot of it was garbage, but they were still twitching and spinning and turning. They still had life in them. The small stuff sort of died off after a couple hours, but I heard some of the bigger pieces were still churning weeks later. Like cutting the head off a chicken. The important parts, the ones we knew were actual church artifacts, we managed to bag and get moved to the train in La Paz for transport. I counted, maybe 100 individual anomalous artifacts. Some of the boys at the train station joked they'd have to build a whole new site just to keep it all. We kept casualties low, fortunately. Mostly guys just being dumb around machinery, acting like he still couldn't take the arms off. Rodriguez got his hand crunched, and we had to help move him to the local clinic. I think we only had 1 death the entire time. One of the locals we hired to help dive down through the bay and get straps around the heart so we could pull it up. I didn't see it, but I heard about it. It said they found him with his head smashed between 2 moving pieces. Said it looked like he shoved it in there himself. But I don't know. I didn't see it. I did see the tags, though. You know, when a place manufactures something, and in order to identify where the part came from, they'll get a big piece of metal with a name on it and stick it to the side of the part? Well, we saw plenty of those on other parts, the stuff that they had collected while it was eating its way to the sea. None of the church artifacts did, though. They all, buzzed along like everything else, but they weren't marked. You could feel something when standing next to them, like serenity. The whole project felt like that. It felt calm, like relief. Except for the heart. When we finally got it out of the bay, we had to keep it on the shore for a day because of the weather. Some of the locals started to get itchy. Said they was hearing voices and wouldn't go near it. Didn't matter how much money we offered them. I had to wait to bring in more support from the base up north just to get it loaded on a ship. I don't know. I've seen all kinds of things. But my mimetic resistance is pretty high. I had to pass a handful of tests just to get this assignment. Everything was clean. But I can't deny getting another kind of feeling around the heart. I don't know if I'd say I was hearing voices, but... Right, the tags. It was as we was leaving and loading it on the ship, I was going to take it north, that I saw them for the first time. I didn't even think to say anything then. Didn't even pass my mind until I started looking at some of the files. And then that ship crashed in the storm, and they lost the Han. And the whole time, I kept thinking about those goddamn metal tags. I realized it then, I think. That wasn't a church artifact, Johnny. They said property of the factory.
Due to the difficulty of close examination of SCP-882, these claims have not been verified. Addendum 112. Interview with POI 004D/001. The following is an excerpt from an interview in 2009 with that person of interest who claims to be part of a previously unknown sect of the Church of the Broken God. Contact was made with the cooperation of the Unusual Incidents Unit, who had interacted with that person as detailed in Addendum 01, or 1.01. Is it the same person that was talking? No, somebody else. So, tell me what you think you know. I see. Interesting. Well, you're not entirely wrong, and that's commendable in this day and age. There are a few key details I feel you may be overlooking, and you may be overvaluing information handed to you by a self-admitted amnesiac. Let me set the record straight. The GOC did not kill Yahweh, as they may so proudly proclaim. And that was not the broken god they destroyed. It was a piece of it, surely, but would you show me a camshaft and call it a car? Oh, so you have some parts together. An engine, perhaps, but not a car. God is much simpler than that. God is everything. From the biggest star to the smallest particle, each tiny part's completely insignificant on their own, doing whatever it is they're meant to do, meshing together, gnawing at each other, all part of the cosmic machine. The machine aspect was, at some point, likely simply a metaphor, an idea, but, as I'm sure you know, ideas are powerful. They make things from nothing, or change things already there, and with a small spark of the divine, a symbol becomes real. Have a planet with as much life as there is here, you generate a lot of ideas. And you may ask me, why is it called the Broken God? There are a few possible answers. Something as simple as translation issues. Reinterpretations made physical by the devout. Is broken simply a poor translation of some more nuanced word? Was God a being that broke in the Big Bang? If so, why did it break? What will happen if it's repaired? I can answer none of the questions save the last, but you already know the answer. Whatever God once was doesn't matter ultimately. What matters to you is that it must remain as it is. Broken. God knows that. The more powerful parts, the mechanical components, the more conventional sects may label as holy, they know they're not meant to be one solid thing, and even when forced together, a foreign force driving them, they know what they really are. Bits of the monster will work to destroy itself, deploy smaller entities to do the job. The GLC didn't kill it. They took the gun from its own hand and claimed credit when they pulled the trigger. The problem is that humans are too small a part of God to remember what it was like before. And so, those like Bomaro will invent new ways to push us towards a singularity. Because that's what'll happen. Did you see the underside of the destroyer? It was damaged even before the encounter in 43. And if you looked very closely, you might have seen the scars were getting closer and closer to the power core. It even managed to damage whatever lets it slip between the layers of reality this time. Eventually the monster will win. It will destroy the destroyer, devour it, and with its power consume everything. And I mean everything. God will return to being one just all, being a singularity, and then break. Only this time, it may have some outside force within it. The rust of the factory, the blood of a Davite king, the Fifthist, Wondertainment, some random person on the street with enough spark in him to be a reality bender. They will have a hand in remaking the universe and close the secondary loop of all this. No, that doesn't concern me. It's an eventuality. It's meant to happen. Who's to say it hasn't already happened? And your people were the winner. Maybe humanity itself was the winner. But that doesn't mean I'd be putting it off. Allowing the primary loop to continue. Yes, it's possible. I know you couldn't damage the monster last time, and that the destroyer may not be able to repair itself by the time it's needed, but who's to say you can't eat it? or mimic those who will seek to rebuild God and acquire outside help. Working together, nothing is impossible. Apart, we are broken, but united, we are God. Alright, so that's going to do it for this episode of Reading 001. We're halfway through Ouroboros or Ouroboros, however you want to say it. So in the next episode, if there's enough time, maybe we'll cover the Atonement and the way it ends. But if there's not, we'll just do the Atonement and then do the way it ends later. So, if you like this, a like and a subscribe will be groovy. If you didn't, you only do either one of those things. If you want to click the bell, you can do that as well so that you're notified of future uploads. And I will see y'all in the next one. Later.